I just reached out to some people that I knew in my network through Facebook groups of, people. We went on a trip to China together and things like that. And those are my first clients. And from there, I started getting some testimonials and posting in other Amazon seller Facebook groups. And really, that was how we got our start for maybe the first 6 months. It was mostly just through networking and, creating valuable posts on Facebook and then sending DMs to people who might be a good fit for my services.
I find that very interesting because, again, in the space that I'm at, I'm helping a lot of people that are just getting started as well. And I've noticed that for some people, those first stages happen a little more effortlessly. And for others, it's a complete roadblock. And so I'd be curious to know, what do you think made it so that by you sending direct messages or you going into Facebook groups where, I'll hear some noise online saying like, stop going to Facebook groups to try to find clients, sending direct messages doesn't work, but you were able to have that kind of success. What do you think makes it different the way that you did the approach where so many others might have failed?
Well, I think self-belief is a huge part of it. So if you believe that it works, you're going to keep doing it. And it doesn't matter if you put in, 2-3 hours of doing outreach or whatever it is to get the result. You believe that if you send enough messages, you're going to get some clients, right? If you don't believe, if you listen to all these people who say that direct messages don't work, like don't post in Facebook groups anymore, then are you really going to put in hours of that effort if you don't believe that it's going to work, right? Like if you don't believe in God, whatever your religious views are you going to go home and pray to God tonight? Probably not, right? So belief is a huge part of it. And it totally still works today. Like, maybe Facebook groups and DMs are less effective than they were 5 years ago, but I know lots of people who do tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in sales, mostly through Facebook groups and DMs. It definitely still works. That's the dirty secret of marketing. It's almost everything works. Even cold calling, like the oldest thing in the book, still works, right? It's maybe you're just not doing it correctly. You haven't put in your 1,000 hours to get really good at it, whatever it is.
I think we're in a culture, particularly trained with the social media, that we give up on things because we don't get results fast enough. I mean, if I want to go somewhere, I can call an Uber and it'll take me a couple minutes. When I see it's like 15 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, it's going to take forever. And I feel like we've been trained to have results, or at least a measurable outcome, so fast that a lot of the things that we need to do to have success have to be repeated long enough, and you don't see the results immediately. And so you have to have that belief. I totally agree with you. And let me ask the question a bit more spicy here, which is, I hear a lot of people saying, send some DMs, put some posts, go out there and do this kind of like bootstrap marketing. But what do you think differentiates someone who's just doing it and it's like spamming versus someone who's doing it and genuinely wanting to get clients?
So I'd say two things. Understanding social nuance and your intention, right? So the social nuance thing is super important. Like I have like 70,000 Instagram followers or something. So my account gets a ton of random DMs from people. 99% of them are absolutely terrible, right? It just makes no sense. Like they're trying to start a conversation like small talk or something, which it doesn't work through like a cold DM to somebody, or they just like clearly want something, or their pitch is off, right? Understanding the nuance of the context of you're reaching out to this person and they have no idea who you are, and also the context of sending a message as opposed to actually talking to someone. They're very different forms of interaction with people. That's something that like you really need to be a practitioner. You got to go in there and do it yourself and be messaging with people a lot to understand that nuance, right? Like most people who are in their 20s today have grown up with that. So they're probably more adept to that than older people, unfortunately. But that's the first thing is like, you got to understand the context of the situation when you're reaching out to these people. And the other thing is intention. So if you're just randomly spamming out messages to people and you see that as like the equivalent to handing out flyers to people, think about that for a second. If you're on the street and someone hands you a flyer, what do you do with the flyers, right? Like I never look at a flyer. I take it out of respect because I don't want to be an asshole and tell them to screw off. That's it. I throw it in the garbage, right? And so just sending random cold DMs to people is the equivalent to the same thing, right? When I was doing the strategy, and this is still how I recommend to do it today, I was messaging very specific people. So people I'd already interacted with, or maybe they interacted with my social media posts before. And then you're not some random person. Like, one, you're showing up in their actual message inbox because they're already following you or something like that. And then two, like, they're familiar with you. And the more familiar they are with you, the more likely they are to respond to your message and respond positively, right? So putting out that value in these groups and interacting with people, helping them in the comments and everything makes it so much better when you actually message these people later on.
Yeah. Well, I love that you bring that up, and I do agree with you that these are the big things that we have to look out for. It was so funny because I was investigating community software, so one of these tech platforms that helps you manage communities and such, and I found it very interesting as I was reviewing it. It was actually called School, which is Sam Oven's new initiative, and as I'm looking at the demo videos, there's actually you. Was actually on one of the community leaderboards for one of the products he speaks about, and it was showing that he was the top contributor. And as such, I already know that what you're speaking about is something you actually practice it. You're not just preaching it, because I see you're very active in communities, and I agree. When you become one of the top contributors, then there's a permission you have to be able to reach out to people, offer, and not just come as a cold person randomly DMing. You're actually going to be messaging them, and they're like, oh yeah, we've noticed this person contributes, gives a lot of comments, provides value, and that intention is key to everything.
So key.
One of the things I speak about in the Selling with Love methodology is like, when you know what you offer is so much more than what you ask in return, that's when you can come from a place of love. Like, that's the energy of love that's in play. And I find that neediness gets in the way of being able to show up that way. Because when you're very needy and like, oh my God, I need the clients and I must get a response, and you become a bit more desperate in your outreach, I find that energy gets felt. And I'd be curious to know, like, for you to be able to reach out, you were locked out of your Amazon, you were needing, some clients pretty fast. How were you still able to come up with that, intention that was, trying to provide value, as opposed to realizing like, oh my God, like I need money really fast?
Yeah, well, I would say it comes down to the one big benefit from my partying days when I was younger. I spent a lot of time going to parties and bars and, all this socializing and probably killing my brain cells. But the one big plus that came out of that, I think, was a strong social intelligence. And I just knew that the intention was everything, right? You see a lot of people posting on social media and in Facebook groups, and clearly their intention is to just get clients or just to spam their billboard out there to the world. But I just knew that if I was valuable enough to enough people, that over time, the reciprocation eventually comes back, right? Everyone knows these people that, everyone just likes, and they're always helpful, and they, never ask for anything in return. And everyone knows a friend that is always just like wanting something from them. And humans can feel that on a very nuanced and subtle level, right? It's hard to trick people, at least for a long time. So I just really understood that, I think, on a good level, and that really helped me navigate in the beginning. Like before DMs became like a huge big marketing strategy like they are now. That was kind of in the beginning of it.
Nice. No, I totally agree. And I think we can all relate to knowing those friends that just come to you when they have a favor versus people that are just actively always providing value. So I like that you bring this up.